but the brain, I think.
So you listen. Thank you.
Only that much.
Good, good, good. Okay, so let's start with seven realities and then get to the book. Jai Baba, Ashok ji,
Yes,
seven
Avatar,
realities. Dikrai.
Meherabad ki jai. The seven realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following. The only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward, when compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Baba, Jai. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, Karthik, one thought which came to my mind. We've been reading
Sure.
this so often. Is that the first line says, "I give no importance to dogma, creed, and caste, and all the karma kanda." So I think that's a very big message which Baba has given, that we love from the heart, and the rites and rituals are okay, but it should be done from the heart only. Jai Baba.
Thank you. So, on the note of karma kanda and caste, I'm reminded of what Mamaji mentioned a few minutes back. So, do you remember the sequence, Mama? Bones to the brain, if you can. I remember only one line, which I will repeat if you don't catch. But if you remember that sequence, that's a good place to start today's discussion.
The topmost is the scriptures, which are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be the rotten bones.
Yeah,
Uh, I think fit for,
fit for the
I don't know,
worms.
worms,
Yeah,
yes.
fit for the worms. That's what he says. Yeah. So this is
The
Baba's
question,
words. So yeah, go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, in between, I can't
I
remember
think it's
much.
fresh bones and then
Yes, yes,
old bones and then finally a brain.
brain, yes.
Anyway, those of
Lucius
you
brain. Mm.
so those of you who are non-vegetarian might relate to the gradations in the quality or whatever of types of meat and bone. But basically, Baba is trying to defend and support Francis Brabazon in a message on about this book. And what I took away was he has been told, Francis has been told to focus a lot on the notes. And there are about 11 pages of notes in the end we'll get to. And Baba says, focus on the notes for the barking dogs. And he refers to the barking dogs as the priests. as the priests and the traditionalists who will refer the scriptures and refer the traditional texts and attack Francis for what he's saying in this book. So, I mean, it's not without reason these things have been said, these things have been described. So, all the more, like Ashok said, very intriguing book. So, let us see what we get out of it. Okay, so I'm sorry, but I sent something out in the morning because I happened to listen to it only this morning. This was session 2A, and 2A is where we just start talking about the first 20 pages of Baba's life. I mean, I think it's not even 20 pages, it's just a few pages of Baba's life from the first book, right? So I suggest that those of you interested, at least after this, sometime during the course of the week after this call, make sure you try to catch up with it. So if you look at what Parks has done, he's done something remarkable here, right? So he actually has set up the schedule session by session. So the first session is about his life and work, Francis Brabazon. So there's a preview of the course, then Stay with God as a tool in Meherabad's work for humanity, why Baba asked for it, and so on and so forth. The Man, the Disciple, and the Poet, the life of Francis Brabazon, a review of Francis Brabazon's literary oeuvre, literary style, movement, whatever, canvas of work that he has done. Francis Brabazon's role and significance among the core of Meher Baba's disciples, and a live reading of select passages. So, if you remember, I told you that there are pieces of the book in the packet. He calls it packet, and so do we. It's called packet, 2021 packet. Okay, that's the folder in the Teams section. So in the packet, you have Poet of the Silent Word, which is a book about Francis Brabazon. And in that, he suggests please read 167 to 70. Then you have Robert Roos, another book, The Water Carrier, and there he suggests read 1 through 31. Not all of the focal readings we will actually take up as part of our call, but these are recommendations from Ward Parks, and given the depth to which he's gone, I would strongly think it must be worth our time during the week to be able to do that. So then you get to session 2. The session 2's title is History of the Text and an Overview of its Form and Plan, right? So a history of Stay with God, its genesis, composition, and reception by Meher Baba, a survey of the book and its parts. So if you listen to the video that I sent out this morning, which link was missing, and then I sent a subsequent message, in that you will see he does session 2, right? And he does a close reading of the dedicatory, preface, foundation, and quotations, which, by the way, we finished yesterday, right? And this morning I learned through that video that the dedicatory is actually set in the most famous literary format, literary meter, called the iambic pentameter, which a lot of people used to write in. So it's a sonnet. So basically, maybe we'll read it before we start again. So it'll give you a glimpse of the poetic. You might remember the rhyming, but it's more than that. There's a way the rhyme is built, and Ward Parks explains that in the video I sent this morning. Then close synoptic overview of the argument expressed in the table of contents. So again, Ward Parks says a lot about how the book is structured. So it's like, as I said, there's a lot of thought that's gone into paras. We'll get paras and how the number of stanzas in each of the sections and so on. And I'll get to that in a minute when we go to the structure chart. Then the focal readings obviously are 1 through 15 in the front matter. So in literary terms, I believe it's called front matter before the book starts. So all the stuff we read yesterday is front matter. And then you have, again, a few pages from Robert Roos and a chart of the structure, which is what I will show you now. So by the way, again, quite a lot of interesting insights Ward gives in his session. So as I described yesterday, and we saw in the table of contents, there are 5 books. Wow. Where are they? Here they are, right? So the first book is biographical, right? Biographical as in the life of Baba in multiple sections. Now the sections are again 7. So 7 is a magical number. So he chooses 7 to cover the sections. So there are sections on the early life, then there's a new life, old, and the new life, and so on in the end. And we will see how it is broken up. These are formally classified as sections. And within each section also, there are a significance to the number of stanzas, which is interesting. So he says there's 7, 14, 101, 16, 16, 24, and 5. And he says they are all probably significant or not just by accident. Okay. And then strictly followed is the lines per stanza. So the whole of book 1 has only 7 lines per stanza. Now, again, 7 is a significant number. Those in the Baba world know about it. And he says, in respect of that, probably Francis has picked 7 for the first book. Now, in the second book is a love song. So if you look at it, 1, 3, 4, and 5 are, if I dare say, they are more like Baba's words through Francis. And we know for a fact that Baba modified some of this and gave his stamp of approval, right? So 1, 3, 4, and 5, if we take it to be Baba's word, 2 is a love song, and it's called that, right? The name of the second book is Love Song of John Kerry. And those of you who remember yesterday, John Kerry is the pseudonym that Francis Brabazon used. So basically, it's a love song from him to Baba. Towards that, Ward says he's picked 6 because only when he reaches the beloved will he become 7. So he's picked 6 lines per stanza. So interesting observation. And then the third book is basically God speaks. God speaking, but as I explained yesterday, it's about the divine theme. The description here is question which reality asked itself and the beginning of illusion and its end, right? So that one, he takes 10 lines per stanza, and there's a literary style called a coda. I'll get to that in a minute. So there are 4 sections and a coda, right? And the lines per stanza, Ward suggests that 10 was chosen. Any guesses why? It's God speaks, right? So Ward says, anybody wants to try?
10 divine themes.
Exactly,
Yes.
the 10 states of God.
Yeah,
The last chapter, the 10 states of God. So given that this is about God speaks and 10 states of God is the most powerful theme, maybe he's picked 10 lines per stanza. Obviously, Francis has not documented all of this. Most of what I'm saying in the last few minutes is Ward's words, okay? And then you have the fourth one. The fourth one is about the journey of the individual, right? The steps to his feet, abandoning illusion for reality. And this is about how to build a relationship with your perfect master, right? And I believe every stanza ends with the word perfect master. So towards that, obviously he's chosen 5 lines per stanza because at any given time, there's 5 perfect masters, right? So, and the last one is the God Man as world access. I told you it's Kutub, the divine son of reality shining through the mists of illusion. Here, he has for some reason chosen 14. Now, just for the record, coda is a more is a musical style. So he says that you'll have a series of stanzas or movements. In Western classical, it's called movements. So at the end of the movements, you'll have a small movement which kind of brings out the big theme, but in a short glimpse. So the example he cites is, even if there are 7 or 8 minute movements and multiple such movements in a piece, at the end of the movements, you may have a few 30-second coda. So it's like something in chorus or something in finality, which brings out the core essence of what's being tried in that piece and in that overall set of movements, right? Again, it's a very musical thing. So he has followed that style. So he has created sections with a small coda in book 3 and book 4 and book 5. So this is all fascinating stuff, right? And this is typical Ward, great attention to detail, phenomenal documentation. And I hope we are able to take away what we can from all of this in this journey of learning about Stay with God.
This
So,
14, can it be 7 steps of evolution and 7 steps of
7 steps of
involution?
highly likely,
Involution.
yes. Highly likely. So, absolutely. So, it very well could be, given it's the Kutub. Obviously, 14 is also a special number. So, Ward also gives credence to that. So, it's kind of very interesting that it's nothing in this book seems to be random. And in fact, he also goes on to say that he has not used the sonnet style, but he has used rhyming and the correct number of syllables, and he gives examples for that. So, so it's not just your random poem that we are reading. There's something that has a lot of structure, thought, and deep work that's gone in. And over and above that, it has Baba's stamp of approval. So again, like Ashok said, intriguing. Right. So let's get to
What
it.
was that book, Karthik, that Water Carrier? What was the author's name?
Yeah. So that was Roos. It was Ross Roos, I think. I'll just get to that.
Ross Roos. Okay.
Yeah, Robert Roos. Robert Roos, Water Carrier.
Robert Roos. Okay.
Yeah, Robert Roos. I don't know if you've heard of him. He must be a Baba lover as well. So if you go here, yeah. So what has happened is, obviously these are not ebooks, but rather suite of Ward Parks to actually put the book out in scan form. So he's actually painstakingly scanned it and created the pages that we are expected to read. So you just need to rotate it, but but for that, I think this is very, very interesting. I mean, this is very nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So it's available. Please refer and read from the folder. Probably I'll also send a link and put out comments in detail in a message. Okay. So with that backgrounder, let's just read the sonnet again. I told you the first one was a sonnet. By the way, another thing that came out of listening to that session is this poem, this set of words that Baba has given for the book is one of 3 messages. There's more coming towards the end. This is one of the 3 messages that Baba wanted included. So this is not again just something picked up, but this was given to Francis to include in the book, and obviously he's given it pride of place by putting it before his work, right? So before that, we just read the sonnet and then let's get on. Yeah, the dedicatory sonnet. So I'll try to read it in poetic style. To Meher Baba, my Lord and friend of the worlds, here is the book. On the theme you set me and which I took into my heart and pondered to the end, that your dear name be known to men and sent, perhaps one to your feet. Look indulgently on it, or else forsaken am I. Yet, Lord, correct my wit and mend my heart in love, for love is my story, and in this book have I labored to tell something of your most marvelous labor. When of myself I wrote, not of your savor was in it. But when I wrote of love, I wrote well, even showing forth some fraction of your glory. I love the last three lines.
Yes.
When of myself I wrote, not of your savor was in it. But when I wrote of love, I wrote well, even showing forth some fraction of your glory. Even showing forth only a fraction of your glories. It's again fascinating use of words. So with that, let's jump to reading the first few pages of the book proper, which is Stay with God proper. Any questions before we start? Thoughts, insights, clarifications? None whatsoever.
Nothing, Karthik. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mama.
This impresses and makes it a stressful point that we need to go through this book in a very disciplined way,
Yes.
because there is so much of Baba in it.
Oh, no
Baba
doubt.
himself and about Baba. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So let's do our best. And as you rightly said, do it with effort and interest that's deserving something of this nature. So,
Yeah.
and let's pray to Baba to help us in this journey. So with that, let's get started. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Wings toward the glaciers of Kailas, where the first fathers nourished the seed of God, and Shiva gentled Ganga and Parvati, walked by streams of living heart. For Shiva was Jesus before him, and Parvati his loveliness in the earth, as was Rama, as was Krishna, as was Abraham and Zarathustra, and Buddha and Muhammad and their loveliness. God's avatar, as is now Baba, sing, Baba, your descent this time on earth, your brightness in our night, your comfort in our separation. So I will probably, so as you can see, there are 7 lines here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's what we learned in the structure. And the first one talks about Shiva and the other avatars, and he talks about gentling Ganga, which is basically rocking Ganga in his locks, and Parvati as loveliness in the earth, and then Rama, Krishna, Abraham, Zarathustra. Now again, I think Shiva is less used as the avatars, and Shiva is less used in Baba literature, other than what we noticed in Nothing and Everything, which is through Bhav. So other than the references to Shivatma in God Speaks, in our yeah, sure, you're saying something?
Yeah, so this has been referred to by Ward Parks in his first video also.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So, so that's interesting. So we'll have to keep that at the back of our mind as we understand this. Right. Let me continue. Yeah. Go ahead.
In the
So please
first
feel free. There's no
stanza,
rush. We're not going. If there's something that we need to discuss, every stanza we can take our time and go about it.
here in the first stanza, Shiva is the God principle, and then all others are avatars from that principle.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I agree. So Shiva, gentle Ganga and Parvati, and then he says for Shiva. No, but then he also says this, which is confusing, right? For Shiva was Jesus before him.
before him.
Yeah.
Ah.
So anyway, but I see
Okay.
what you're saying. Shiva is more a generalized version, and then the
Yeah.
specifics are the avatars. That's what you're thinking. Your
Yes.
proposal is, which is good, which is fine. So let's continue. For it is my love's desiring, Baba, to compose a book on this theme, which you set me, and to this task my spirit spreads its wings, only to fall stifled and overcome the song groaning within my breast, impossible of utterance. For only a perfect master can speak a book, and saintship is the least qualification to sing of you, although a profound scholarship is sufficient for the assembling of mere facts. But I have neither devotion nor learning for the task. Again, heights of humility. But what he's saying is, even to be qualified to write about you, you should have a lot of scholarship and saintship. But scholarship is only for getting facts together. It's only knowledge. But to sing of you, you need at least a saintship, right? A saintship, as in somebody on the path who is advanced but not yet a perfect master. And he gives perfect master the option to, I mean, the qualification or eligibility to write a book. That's what he's saying here. I continue. In the past, you had Vyasa. The reference is Veda Vyasa. You had Vyasa and Homer from Greece, and Valmiki and many others, who were your name, and yourself to leave your name in impassioned imprisonment. Who were your name, and yourself to leave your name in impassioned imprisonment. Of words and saints innumerable who picked up the threads of your name's loveliness and wove them into bright patterned verses. Only if you, Baba, sustain my flight, give knowledge to my intellect, and unbind the empathy of my heart, can this work be done. Only if you, Baba, sustain my flight, give knowledge to my intellect, and unbind the empathy of my heart, can this work be done. Not miracle, but faith. Not miracle, but faith. Faith that is grace, and grace your miracle. Not miracle, but faith. Faith that is grace, and grace your miracle. So he draws in Baba's support for it. Ignorant men of domestic culture, say that Jesus was the first bringer of love. Ignorant men of domestic culture, say that Jesus was the first bringer of love. Despicable is their doctrine, having it that before this God was loveless. Despicable is their doctrine, having it that before this God was loveless. So he says that, and correct me if I'm wrong, he says that people say that Jesus was the first bringer of love. He says that whole approach is so despicable because before, it's almost to suggest God was loveless before Jesus, right? That's what he's saying. And other ignorant men have it that love now is sealed, that there is no further need of his descent and example. Love does not admit of a first or a last. God is never of more nor less. All his bright messengers were nothing but love. and the essence of love, sun bright and wholly perfect. All his bright messengers were nothing but love and the essence of love, sun bright and wholly perfect. Moses, I think somebody has to mute their phone. Moses was this, for he said, love God with your whole heart and soul. Sakya Muni was this, for he showed men the way of release and bliss. And the 24 Buddhas before him, for they all were releasers. Zarathustra was this same flame, because he told men, when you behold the sunrise, or by your hearth fire, remember the light in your hearts. Rama was this, because his arrows were a rain of love. Abraham was this, because he told men to destroy their idols. So all of them.
Jeva,
Yeah, sure.
I have a question. So basically, love is there from the very beginning, and so there's nothing like it has evolved. God is another form of love. Can we make that inference?
Yeah, I think he starts. He's exactly saying that, and he's saying that it is sad that only Jesus is equated as the person who brought down love, and there's nobody after that that actually represented love as well as him. And he goes on to give all the examples to say they were all, he uses the word releasers, and says that all of them talked about love only. Even in Rama's arrows were a rain of love. Zarathustra was this same flame, because he told men, when you behold the sunrise or by your hearth fire, remember the light in your hearts. The light in your hearts is the love, right? So I think that's what I'm getting out of this.
Yes, and I also one more question. And see, the mention of 24 Buddhas before him, and I don't know whether there is a correlation. We have 24 Tirthankaras in the Jain religion, and so area of research. So I don't know, but Baba is also mentioned as a partial avatar of Lord Mahavira. So if anybody has any reference, obviously there has to be some connection. But if anybody has any reference, please share.
No, that 24 number, first thing that struck me was the Jain root. The other one is in Bhagavata, there is reference to 24 avatars, minor avatars, than before are added to the 10 major avatars referred in Bhagavata. So maybe that is what is the connection that came to my mind. That Jain Tirthankars, the 424 are there. So it may be reference to that also. And Sakya Muni, I don't know whom he is referring to here. I'll have to check on that.
I think he was a philosopher, right? Is there a reference?
Maybe I am not, nothing comes to my mind right now on that.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's a reference Ward has given. So he's talking about the Hamsa, the holy mountain, and that's there in the packet with the number of pages that that he's referring us to read. The Iliad and the Odyssey, that's Homer. Homer wrote the Iliad, so that's also in the packet. And I don't know where we have probably not yet come across Life and Teaching of Naropa. Let's get back. Yeah. So
no, this one paragraph makes us to go to the different religious beliefs and stories to get the kernel out of that, not the say story part of it or the historical things, but how they are related to love and then the teachings that is brought out here.
true. Yeah, the specific relevance in each of those
Yes.
avatars or masters. Yeah. So with that, let's go down. And of love was Pallas Athene, because she put courage and wayfaring into Telemachus's heart. And of love was Apollo, because his sign was the sun. And whatever men love is of the sun, whether of sky or of heart, whether of creature or of God, and of love and in love was Chaitanya. For he repeated one word, Krishna, and was Shankaracharya this too, for he said many words explaining that all men were God, and the rest of them, the 84,000, who were nothing but love. Right? Now, I think he reads this out. What reads this out even in the first video. So what's the 84,000 here? What's the 84,000 reference here?
That is
there
explaining all men were God. All men were God. And the rest of them that who are not realized, the 84,000 who
is
are
that
nothing but love.
Gopikas or no? He's talking about Krishna here, I think. So is 84,000 the number of Gopikas? I don't know. I'm asking.
Probably, I don't know. But and also 84,000 alludes to the number of janmas that we need to take up.
No, that's 84 million. I mean, that's not 84,000. I thought of that. It's not.
Okay. Then
That's
it must be
84.
gopis.
Probably. So need to check that. Yeah, sure.
That's 84 lakhs. So this whole study is going to involve a lot of research.
Yes, you're the researcher.
I would need help. Anyway.
Yes.
Sure. I am doing some bit of research, but largely listening to word parts.
Yes. At least we will listen to word park first and then,
Yes.
if possible, go further.
Further research.
That's the first step. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, and then I think even Ward gives a lot of importance to Krishna as the first person who gave the idea of love the most prominence. So let's go to that para. But if we would name a first, a clear emblem amidst the lovely occasions of God, let it be Krishna. But if we would name a first, a clear emblem amidst the lovely occasions of God, let it be Krishna, whose flute is the multitude of men's hearts from the dawn of time till now. For if God did not love music, the world would never have come into being. And if men did not love music, they would never get to God. It is better to reverence all his names and say Baba, who is the love now, and the glory and the awakening and the afresh path setting. It is better to reverence all his names and say Baba, who is the love now, and the glory and the awakening and the afresh path setting. Okay, there are notes here. That's the end of a section, I think. The line here. So denotes the section. So let's see if that makes sense with our structure. 7 stanzas and then a section. Let's see if that's what is happening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the line denotes the end of a section here. So if you look at where we are, we finished this from book 1. Right? Okay, let's get back. Okay. This time, God took birth at 5 a.m. February 25th, 1894. His parents were Shakracharya Mundegar Irani and Shireen Bai, and he was named Narwan. The place, Pune. But his legend had begun when nature and his mother were still preparing the vehicle he was to use for his work here. She had a dream in which a vast sea of people gazed expectantly towards her. In another dream after his birth, a Hindu goddess bearing in her hands the trappings of worship beckoned for the child to be given to her. I think everybody, I mean, some of you or most of you would have heard of the reference to the dream that's being talked about here. I have not heard of the second dream that's being referred here, but the first dream I think is famous. The only observation I also had was, is it Shireen Mai or Shireen Bai? Maybe in records it is Shireen Bai, I don't know. But yeah, that's one. And on that note, I realized that there was an edit that, let's come back to this page in a minute. So in the dedicatory sonnet, forsook is what he recommends. So he says it's forsook, and I think the next edition will be with forsook the word. So let's put it there. Okay, so we were at 25, page 25. Sorry about that. So, yeah, so I think that the dream is where we were. Let's continue. Experience confirmed the import of both dreams when one day his mother found him playing with a snake. At 7 years, his interest was marbles and kite flying. At 9, he was reading Hafiz. He schooled till 19 years when one evening, as he was going home on his bike, an old woman rose up under a neem tree, called him, and kissed him on the forehead between the eyes and initiated him into bliss. 9 months later, in one moment.
Karthik, page. Oh,
What's that?
Okay. Read it.
Yeah.
Just
9 months later, in one moment, in a flash, she made him know that he was God. He goes on, Brabazon was one of the 5 perfect masters of this age. She was a true fakir. The earth, her bed, a tree and sky, her roof. Her food, whatever the earth gave, through the loving householder's hands gave her. The way of the loveliest and the greatest of East and West. Poverty is my glory. Such was Baba's John to this time Jesus. The others of the 5 were Sai Baba of Shirdi, Tajuddin Baba of Nagpur, Upasni Maharaj of Sakori, and Narayan Maharaj of Kergaon. Poverty is my glory. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't understand this. Such was Baba's John to his this time Jesus.
I think the analogy is she was John. John as close mandali to Jesus, or maybe John was perfect master in Jesus's time. So this time, John was Hazrat Babajan.
Okay.
Maybe
Because
John. I think
because
John
I
the
have
Baptist,
not
right?
read details about Jesus or things like that. Okay.
Yeah, nor have I. But I think it's John the Baptist, and maybe John the Baptist was a perfect master, not Mandli.
Okay. Possible.
I think Peter Baba has connected in this. I mean, he has said who is Peter in. Was it Eruch or somebody has been compared to Peter? I think.
Yes.
But John, I think, is not Mandali, but more perfect master, given what we are seeing here.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The office of the perfect five is permanent. Before one dies, in quotes, he raises another person to perfect mastership to take his place. The office of the perfect five is permanent. Before one dies, he raises another person to perfect mastership to take his place. They are the sole functioning of God in the earth, the guidance of creation, the grace whereby men love and travel the path to truth. When, in the sweep of time, the cry of men reaches to God, they bring down the Son from the heaven of the Father to his mission in the world. Bring him down, wrapped in their love and veiled from knowledge of himself. Beautiful paragraph, beautiful stanza. Read again. The office of the perfect five is permanent. Before one dies, he raises another person to perfect mastership to take his place. They are the sole functioning of God in the earth, the guidance of creation, the grace whereby men love and travel the path to truth. When, in the sweep of time, the cry of men reaches to God, they bring down the Son from the heaven of the Father to his mission in the world. Bring him down, wrapped in their love and veiled from knowledge of himself. So when he comes down, he's veiled in the knowledge of himself, like we have learned and read about. They choose his parents, attend to every detail of his birth. Throughout his childhood years, they watch him tenderly. Theirs is God's motherhood and his father's protectiveness. Theirs is God's motherhood and his father's protectiveness. And when it's time for him to go out to work, to his job of world truing and soul inspiring, they give him his own knowledge of himself and hand over to him his own world and its management, and themselves retire, leaving the world empty of God, save him, God and God-man. Again, beautiful, beautiful para. And I don't know if you remember, truing is a word that Baba uses as well in one of the messages. So what the avatar does is truing the world. Truing is more an engineering term, but then that's a beautiful expression because he's basically giving a spiritual push, and that is characterized by the use of the word truing. So Francis picks that up and says, when it's time for him to go out to work to his job of world truing. So very fascinating, very nice.
Yes.
Babajan gave him the inconceptual experience of his own reality, and the world and its worlds, gross, subtle, and mental, vanished and existed not even as illusion. He alone was the existent and existing. This is the bliss that alone may be called the bliss, and which alone will exist when his work in the world is done. And he returns to his own father self again, leaving another 5 to tend this dusty garden of the earth. The 5 brought him down, wrapped in the veil of humanity. Brabazon, with a kiss, unwrapped him to who he was. Upasni gave him knowledge of what he was to do, brought him down through the 7 planes, dressed again in the triple garment of the world. Though loosely, his God brightness was not diminished. A journey of unspeakable agony taking 7 years. God had again performed his periodic miracle of downcoming and awakening and returning. Brought him down to the 7 planes, dressed again in the triple garment of the world. I like the expression triple garment, GSM.
Yes. And though loosely, that is also
loosely. Yeah.
very, very apt.
Amazing. So, the time was again God's avatar. The time was Jesus. The message was the same as Moses. Jesus was the soul of Moses, and Moses was the soul of Jesus. But it was Jesus' turn. The time was Sakya Muni Buddha. The message was Adi Buddhas, 24 previously. So here's some research that's dying to be done, and I think who better than Ashok to tell us by next week on what the reference to 3 things: Sakyamuni and 2 things: 24, the number 24, and Sakyamuni. Maybe you'll find it interesting as well, given the link to Tirthankaras and Jainism. So maybe you can fill us up on that next week.
Karthik, I have a question. What is the triple garment? That's little
GSM. 3 garments.
Gross, subtle, and
Gross,
mental.
subtle, and
I
mental.
thought as much. Yes.
Yeah. The time was again God's avatar. The time was Jesus. The message was the same as Moses. Jesus was the soul of Moses, and Moses was the soul of Jesus. But it was Jesus' turn. The time was Sakyamuni Buddha. The message was Adi Buddhas, 24 previously. Does the Blessed One expound a doctrine which is new and original? If the Blessed One expounded a doctrine which is new and original, he would not be the Blessed One. Well said, Sariputta, well said. So there's no new message, it's the same message. If there is a new message, he would not be the Blessed One. Now again, something that we need to do some research on.
I think
could be
Sakyamuni and Sariputta are coming in Buddhism, probably.
So we'll
And
find
also
out.
this Adi Buddhas 24, that also may be a part of Buddhism. I don't know. As we read, it looks like that.
Possible. Yes.
Maybe Kama would have been able to, if he had, because he was into all the Buddhistic practices. I don't know.
Probably. So
Yeah.
he's watching a NBA final with a friend in Santa Barbara as we speak.
Okay.
So I spoke to him about 15 minutes before the call. He was at Meherabad last night, or rather today, California time. And he says it was a great day. He was able to see the ocean and everything from. So the way Meherabad is it's on top of the hill, and on a clear day you can actually see the ocean. And there's a tree that is called Baba's tree. So he had a good time there. So, and then he also attended something in in Mount Ohio. That's the name of the town that has Meher Mount. He went to a JK conference, J. Krishnamurti. So I'm sure he'll tell us more when we talk next. Maybe he talked Baba to JK's group. We don't know. So the time was Krishna. The time was Rama. The time was Zarathustra. The time. The world is wrapped in time, and place is men's garment. The world is wrapped in time, and place is men's garment. When it was the time for God to demonstrate the poverty of riches, when it was time for God to demonstrate the poverty of riches, he was called Solomon, who preached life's vanity. He was called Solomon, who preached life's vanity. When it was time for men to practice democracy, he was called Muhammad, who lived among men equally in their joys and sorrows. The words of God are the time and place, but the message of the words is love. The words of God are the time and place, but the message of the words is love. So, some more red underlining. I don't know what is the reference here to Solomon. Speaking of which, shall we quickly see what's in the notes? What page was the notes? $156. What? Okay, 151. Oh yeah, there is. So let's catch up with notes till we get to where we need to. Okay. So let's see what's here. Notes. These notes are for readers not familiar with the general subject matter of this book and or have not read anything of a particular literature to which reference is made, or having once read, having since forgotten it. All of us are probably in this category automatically. So there's a preface to the notes. This is not to say a real artist is not automatically and instantly a teacher in his very act of being artist. Real art is in itself the highest teaching. One who has attained self-realization is a perfect artist in himself, whether or not he ever opens his mouth to others. His very presence among men is a teaching to them of what they should and may become. After realization, he may remain silent, he may sing in verse the fact of truth and describe the stages and states approaching it and comment on the persons involved in them in order to encourage others to seek truth, as did Hafiz. Or he may, like Shakracharya, analyze non-truth in order to prove to the others the existence of truth. Each one of them would be no more or no less an artist than the others. So there's page number
nice,
reference.
Regarding Shakracharya. Neti, neti.
No, non-truth, neti, neti. So
yes.
Progressive elimination. Yeah. Or falsification. Progressive falsification to reach through a process of elimination to the truth. Book 1. So I think we crossed 25th page, right? Oh yeah. So we can go right up to 19, Homer, 20. Yeah, this is pretty good. So you got some relief, Ashok. So
Thanks.
let's catch up.
Jai Baba.
Yeah. So let's read through. So first one is 19. First reference is Kailas, a mountain in the Himalayas and mythological seat of Shiva. For description of this mountain and something of its significance, see the Holy Mountain by Bhagavan Sri Hamsa, translated by Sri Purohit Swami, Faber and Faber Limited, London 1934. Kailash Manasarovar by Swami Pranavananda, SP League Limited, Calcutta 1949. Now, talking of which, I think Hamsa is here, is it?
Hamsa, Holy Mountain.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. There it is. Thank you. An extract from the Holy Mountain by Bhagavan Sri Hamsa. So I'm not going to read it.
Okay. So it looks like
You
an
recognize Hamsa?
encyclopedia.
Yeah, this is,
The
I mean,
way
this is
the
a
things are
labor of
available
love.
now.
The way Ward Parks has done this is amazing, right? So anyway, so this is exactly what we need to read. So that's the level of detail. So the extract is available here. If you want, given it's just 2 pages, maybe we can quickly read it, right? The Holy Mountain, I'll just quickly read it. An extract from the Holy Mountain by Bhagwan Sri Hamsa. The Holy Mountain being the story of a pilgrimage to Lake Manas and of initiation on Mount Kailasa in Tibet by Bhagavan Sri Hamsa. Translated from the Marathi by Sri Purohit Swami with an introduction by W.B. Yeats, London. The public publisher is Faber and Faber Limited, 24 Russell Square, 1934. Here on this lake, Gaurikund, my object which I had cherished all these long years was fulfilled by the loving grace of Sri Sadguru, my master. My joy knew no bounds. The darshan of Sri Kailasa, Lake Manasa, and Gaurikund carried away all the strain and stress of the arduous journey. My heart was elated. I felt my life's ideal was fulfilled. My ideal was to have a sight of the physical form of Lord Dattatreya himself and to get myself initiated into the realization of self. I was determined either to realize this or die in meditation while sitting in yogic posture. I began by looking in all 4 directions and spread my tiger skin on the icy floor of the lake. Planting my staff on the right, I again looked at the sky and at Mount Kailas, crying, "Victory, victory to the Lord, my master." I stood for a few minutes facing the north. After this, I sat on the tiger skin in the Siddhasana posture with my face towards the north. It was sunset. I closed my eyes and passed into meditation, all along trying to fix the mind steadily on a mental image of Lord Dattatreya in the center between my eyebrows. The first night, I experienced terrible hardships, bitter cold, piercing winds, incessant snow, inordinate hunger, and deadly solitude combined to harass the mind. The body became numb and unable to bear the pangs. Snow covered me up to my breast, and till after midnight, I was fighting desperately with my mind. My body helped my mind, and I thought both of them were bent on defeating my object. But self confidence, determination, and my unbounded love towards my master conquered them in the end. I succeeded in subjugating the invulnerable enemies and was steadily riveted to my meditation, and as a consequence, lost consciousness of the body and of the world outside. It is so difficult to say anything further when I had passed beyond these things. Every moment increased the intensity of my yearning to see my master. And it was while I was in this state that I thought I heard a voice. I did not leave my meditation. Later on, I found that the image which formed the subject of my meditation grew more and more dim. Yet I refused to allow my mind to leave its point of concentration. Instead, I fixed it there with added determination. "O my child, O my dear," I heard these words thrice, but did not open my eyes, for the mental image of my master was still there between the eyebrows. I wanted to see the Lord Dattatreya in physical form, and naturally it was impossible for me to be satisfied with his voice alone. Moreover, no sight of a physical form was possible until the mental one had disappeared. As I was so keen about the physical sight, I did not leave my meditation, although I heard the call 3 times. At last, all of a sudden, the mental form disappeared. Automatically, my eyes were opened, and I saw standing before me the Lord Dattatreya, my master, in his physical form. At once I prostrated myself on the icy ground like a staff and placed my head at his lotus feet. 3 days had passed like 3 moments for me. My master lifted me up like the Divine Mother and hugged me to his breast and caressed me all over the body. Thereafter, he gave me the mantra, sacred words, and initiated me into the realization of the self. What a great bliss it was. I cannot describe that joy, as it is beyond any description through words. The master preaches through his silence, and all the doubts of the disciple are solved. Thus says a Sanskrit poet. You can take as much enlightenment from these lines as you find in them. Here, my manam, mind, merged into antahkarana, the heart. The antahkarana with the manas merged into the chitta, mind stuff. The chitta, along with the antahkarana and manasa, merged into the buddhi, intellect. Buddhi with chitta, antahkarana, and manas merged into the ahankara, and the ahankara, along with the buddhi, chitta, antahkarana, and manasa, all merged into the absolute Brahma. I found myself reflected everywhere in the whole universe. It was all one harmony, full of wisdom, infinite love, perennial and bliss eternal. Where was the body, its tenements, and the I? It was all Sat Chit Ananda, truth, wisdom, and bliss. The Lord Dattatreya, my master, after having blessed me, lit the sacred fire and asked me to perform the sacrificial ceremonies. After this, he initiated me into the Giri order of the sannyasins and named me Hamsa. I had nothing to offer to him except a biscuit which I placed in his bowl. He ate half of it and gave the rest to me as prasad, sacred food. Then the Lord told me to ask for a boon. I was silent in the beginning, but when I was told this a second time, I asked him one in the words of the great devotee Prahalada. Let my heart always feel the same attachment towards thee, though divested of its harm that the undiscriminating owl feels for worldly objects. My master placed his hand in blessed on my head and said, "Let it be so," and smiled at me. Thereupon, we both set out to reach my camp. I had taken nearly 15 hours in climbing to Gauri Kund, but in the company of the Lord, I took only as many minutes to reach the camp. So, interesting. But I don't know, this is less about Kailasa than the experience of Hamsa, but I shall let that be.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we should read that later, the Hamsa one. This is more about Kailasa, right? 19.2, Siva, Supreme Lord, in mythology is usually linked with Brahma and Vishnu. In spiritual tradition, he is Adi Guru, the first master and the world teacher. So this is more the reference in the poem. Adi Guru, first master and world teacher, because all the rest are avatars in the first para. Ganga, the river Ganges. In mythology, Ganga was once in heaven. Saint Bhagirath, by his prayers, brought her down to earth. Shiva, in order to save the earth from the shock of the fall of the waters, broke their fall on his head. Parvati, consort of Shiva. To people who have been educated out of even belief in the existence of God, the idea of him having a consort or wife may be quaint and belonging to a primitive period of man. And to those brought up on and intellectually weakened by a vague monotheism linked with a never intelligently explained trinity, rather shocking. But when Parvati is understood as Shakti, that is wife, equals creative energy, it will be seen that she does not in any sense constitute a modification of one without a second. Beautiful para, right? Beautiful para describing Shiva and Parvati and beating up everybody else, all the barking dogs. Right. Then Rama, Krishna, Abraham, Zarathustra, Buddha, Muhammad, avatars, Christ of God. 19, number 11, perfect master, Sanskrit, Sadguru, pure highest absolute teacher. Arabic, it becomes Kutub, which is axis, the word that he uses for the last book in the title. Axis in the sense of axis of the universe and all life and persons. Hence, all objects and beings are equidistant from him. Wow, that's the axis. Okay. One who has realized an actual experience himself as self or achieved God consciousness and returned to normal or the ordinary human conscious state while retaining without break his continuous experience of himself as self or God, power absolute, knowledge absolute, and bliss absolute. This returning is solely for the purpose of helping others enmeshed in false identification to realize themselves as self. Biggest. He has no further experience or benefit to gain by coming back. For details, see God Speaks by Meherabad. So that's a perfect master. Saintship. So saintship is used in the first page, if you remember. In fact, to bring out the necessities for being able to write about Baba, about God. The real meaning of the word saint has become lost through the cessation in the West of the existence of such persons. Cessation in the West of the existence of such persons. He's caustic, brutal, unforgiving, he's direct. Throughout this book, it is used to denote one who has mastered and transcended in consciousness the worlds of matter, energy, and the consciousness functions of the intellect and intuition, and is established in direct perception of truth. There are recognized degrees of experience and authority of saints. The perfect saints enjoying continuously the sight of God face to face. The science of the self or the science of planes of consciousness, no less than the physical sciences, has its exact terminology. The subject is treated fully in God Speaks. Okay, the 15th reference on page 19, Vyasa, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Dvaipayana. Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, the author of the epic Mahabharata, in which is told the story of the deeds of Krishna and of which the popular Bhagavad Gita is a section. Homer, as I said, is the author of the epics Iliad and Odyssey. Valmiki, the author of the epic Ramayana, which tells of the life and deeds of Rama. Valmiki, from being a cutthroat, became, after a meeting with a sage, a devotee of the name of God. After many years of continuous repetition of this name, the Ramayana was revealed to him. He is an example of the ideal artist. Okay, love now is sealed. Reference to Mohammedan belief that Muhammad was the last and final avatar. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
That's 24th reference on page 19. Sakya Muni, there you go. The Buddha derived from Sakya, a warrior tribe which derives its origin from the sun and in which tribe Buddha was born. And Muni, one who fearlessly faces sorrow, who is not intoxicated with the delight of happiness and has no fear or the least trace of anger. It is a peculiarity of Buddhism in general that it seems content with the status of Muni for its master instead of declaring him avatar. In this, it is as unenterprising as Mohammedanism, which restricts Muhammad to the role only of messenger and has no parallel elsewhere in Hinduism or the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion. The Christians, though restricting Jesus to one advent, at least gave him the credit of being avatar, although they're capitalizing his miracles, thus reducing him to the status of a mere fourth planer. On this, Meher Baba one day said, Jesus was God. I ought to know. As God, he was the creator of the whole universe. How they belittle him by even mentioning his miracles. The word Sakyamuni is used in this present text to distinguish the historical Buddha from the 24 prehistorical Buddhas. So there are 24 prehistorical Buddhas, and Sakya Muni is the reference to Gautama Buddha.
Gautam Buddha. Yes.
So next page we had Pallas Athene, or I don't know how that's pronounced, but I'm guessing it's Pallas Athene. In mythology of a goddess who was born fully grown and fully armed as a warrior from the head of Zeus, the supreme god, as loving counselor and friend. See Iliad and Odyssey. Gentlemen, Iliad and Odyssey is here. Okay, so, but I will not be reading. Iliad is here, Odyssey is here. 3 sections. Telemachus, son of the hero Odysseus, all Greek mythology, Greek history. See Odyssey. Apollo, god of song and music, also helper and destroyer. Apollo is the god of song and music, and also helper and destroyer. I think Sanjay ji, your camera has gone off by mistake. 24, fourth reference on page 20. Chaitanya. The reference here is to the Chaitanya from Bengal. What's the full name? Anybody? Mama.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah.
Oh,
Perfect
Chaitanya
master
Mahaprabhu.
born
Yes.
in Bengal in the 16th century, who preached the way of devotion to God. 25, Shakracharya, perfect master born in South India in the 8th or 9th century, who used the method of reason to prove the existence of God, Sanskrit Paramatman. Paramatman as the reference to God. Krishna. Krishna, whose flute, the most loved forms of Krishna are the naughty and merry child, and the divine flute player who entrances all by the beauty of his person and music, which awakens in men's heart the divine song of their own true being. As the latter, he is the tangible yet ever elusive lover for whom the soul longs for intimacy and union. 2024, Hafiz, a perfect master in Persia in the 14th century who portrayed in flawless verse the divine truths and the states of relationship between the lover and the beloved. So far, the Nicholson of Hafiz has not appeared, and most translations are pretty impossible. But there is an excellent small book, Hafiz of Shiraz, translated by Peter Avery and John Heath Stubbs in the Wisdom of the East series, published by John Murray, London. Nicholson seems to be a reference to a very prominent translator whom I do not recognize, but he's saying a good translation has still not happened, except for these 2 examples, or maybe 1 example, the Hafiz of Shiraz. Poverty is my glory. So that was used when Hazrat Brabazon was explained. So it's actually a saying of Muhammad. So if you recollect, when the Perfect Master section was there, this phrase came there. Poverty is my glory. So it's a saying of Muhammad. 21:15, inconceptual experience. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or I am God state. See God speaks. 21:16, worlds, gross, subtle, and mental. Physical universe, the energy which activates energy, matter, and mind, in which they are given existence in illusion. 7 planes. See God speaks, triple garment, mind, energy, matter. Again, GSM. 21:29, the time was Jesus. Matnavi by Jalaluddin Rumi. Okay, 28.8. So let's go there and then come back. 28.8. 28.8. Jalaluddin Rumi, perfect master born in Persia and afterwards settled in Asia Minor. 13th century, his works, the Matnavi of Jalaluddin Rumi, Luzak and Co. publisher, translated by Nicholson. So there you go. Cambridge, the Rubaiyat of Jalaluddin Rumi, translated by Arbery, were all written after his perfection. There's a handy size selection by Nicholson in Rumi, Poet and Mystic, in their ethical and religious classics of the East and the West. The unflinching loyalty and implicit obedience to a master, even in the face of physical ill treatment, which is required of an aspirant on the path to self-knowledge, is difficult for the Western mind, groping as it is towards freedom and caught in the ideals of freedoms, which are only its shadow to appreciate. Yet, our authorities have no hesitancy in imposing unflinching loyalty and implicit obedience on us in case of national emergencies, and our initial period of rebellion, we have no difficulty in accepting the necessity for them. Remember lockdown? But whereas these requirements are imposed on us, whether by an authority we have freely elected to govern us and therefore actually representative of our own aggressiveness, or which we have been coerced into recognizing and therefore not representative of our particular expression of greed, it is still an imposition by our lowest instincts. The loyalty and obedience required by a master are freely accepted by the aspirant as a condition of his training and may be abandoned at any point where the aspirant wishes to finish his training. It is a requirement only so long as the aspirant places himself under the guidance and protection of that master. Furthermore, although there is the pretense by our authorities of welcoming criticism and of encouraging discussion, the forms and channels of this criticism and discussions are so restricted as to render them ineffective. On the other hand, the requirement by a master of literal acceptance of whatever he says is not with the object of making the aspirant his shadow and robbing him of initiative. It is the requirement of a doctor of his patient whose health and well-being is the only reason for association, and it is the earnest wish of the master that the aspirant uses his initiative to the full to try to grasp the meaning and intention of the master. The following story told to me, I think, by a disciple of Meher Baba, illustrates the compassion of the master and his eagerness for his disciples' advancement. Once I was sitting with Baba and he said, I have all along been saying that I am one with everyone and everything. Have you grasped the meaning of it yet? I answered that I hadn't. He said, have you bestirred yourself, pricked your mind to grasp it? I replied, I had, but to no effect. So I have just accepted it as I accept other things as your say and therefore true, and have left it at that. Baba replied, it is no good just accepting what I say. You must try to understand it. Use your whole mind and try to understand, and you will. It should also be remembered, see note 1911, that a real master is one whose very existence among us is for the sole object of our well-being. Perfect master. Subscription of implicit obedience and unhesitatingly carrying out his orders can lead only out from self-entanglement into self-knowledge. Obviously, one is a fool of the most irresponsible order who offers such obedience to one who is not a perfect master. To the question, how can one determine that someone is a perfect master? May be answered, deserts are according to merits. To the question, how can one determine that someone is a perfect master, may be answered, deserts are according to merits. The dishonest and the self-seeking will always pick the false teacher or the outright charlatan, one who wants truth more than anything else, including himself, will be led by his own unexpressed truth to the man of truth. The same principle applies in life. One arrives at where one sets out for. The missile arrives at the target at which it was pointed. So a lot of Rumi and surrender and obedience, more than obedience, surrender. So this is where we were, 21, 29, and we went to 28, 28. Sariputta, that's where we were, I think. One of the disciples of Buddha. Okay, so with that, we come to 21. Let's go back to 25 then. $84,000. So this is what I was saying. So poverty is my glory is expression from Muhammad. So that was what we learned. And here we were, Sariputta. So I think we can take a pause here and continue on from page 22 for next week. So guys, please take this seriously. Read the, listen to the What Parks videos, catch up with the last week's if you missed it. Yesterday's if you missed it. And I think let's make the best of this detailed reading.
Karthik, what is the correct say link for Word Park Stay with God?
So I'll create a playlist in the next 1 hour and send it out so that it's there in one sequence.
Okay.
That's intro followed by the 16 videos. Right. And I will probably post the session videos that have to be completed before the weekend so that you have time. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? Any other reactions? This was fascinating. I liked it.
Maybe Sunil got all confused.
I know he came in a bit late.
Not confused really.
Okay, good.
I think I got my bit of a dose from Baba in the last few words. Use your mind. I've slowed down on my mind. I think I need to use it. So I'll try.
So this is more the heart, Sunil. So you can listen to yesterday's video. My guess is we focused on the mind through Don Stevens, and through Francis we get to the heart. So that's what Baba wants us to do with this book, I believe.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Wait, Namita is here. She wants to see everybody.
Oh, your heart is also there. Good.
Yes.
See?
I am Mamaji's heart also.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Baba is, yes.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, how are you?
Where's everybody? How to see everybody?
Oh.
I can't do without eye contact. Can you? Can you wear something?
Wait.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
How are you, Mamaji?
I'm fine. You have become a rarity nowadays. Except for Facebook postings here now and then.
Baba told me that these people will take a long time to reach the heart. So why are you going in a reverse game?
See, we need your help.
Baba said, they'll take many janmas. You're already there. Don't go backwards.
So at least pull us all forwards.
In its own time, Mamaji.
Oh.
Okay.
Confirming that we are far away.
Because I reckon, logic is not something That's needed on this journey. I mean, for me, but for all of you, perhaps. I'm sure you must have missed me.
Yes, yes.
So since today is Mother's Day, let me show you Baba today. Can you turn it? You must have seen, Mamaji must have seen. Wait.
Yeah.
Ah,
Hey, Baba.
This is our Baba. This is our other Baba.
yes.
Okay.
My side.
Yeah. There is this another Baba.
So
Okay.
this
Now,
Mother's Day special.
yes, it's Mother's Day special. Now close your eyes. Let's do some meditation.
Whoa.
Did I hijack the party?
No, you came at the
No,
right
no, absolutely. You came at the right time. Yeah.
and Kumud is standing just.
Jai Baba Kumud.
Jai Baba Nomita.
She heard your voice and got attracted, huh? So that's your magnetism, Nomita.
You see, when people see me, they get more attracted. That's why I'm showing Baba the most attractive.
Yes.
Yes.
And I see that Karthik has a new look, a new goggles, new spectacles, new avatar of.
Because he's spectacular.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so before we go into meditation, we'll do a little exercise.
So maybe I'll just end this reading
you
video
end
and then we'll continue. Yeah.
Karthik, can you